I'm back, guys. Last day recording for me, a couple of videos left, just drive through it. Hopefully it'll be over in no time. Today is the final major tips if for some reason you haven't taken notes. If for some reason you haven't taken notes, one, you just really annoyed me, but I'm smiling, so that's of no benefit. But hopefully today I'll bring you through the final, I guess, like summarizing tips, just in case you forgot something or, you know, anything. So with me on the iPad. So with the final major tips that help perfect your game at the final stages, this is just something to remember. This is essentially not a comprehensive recap. This is, I guess, the small tips and tricks that hopefully will it's just drawing upon a few things. Now, one thing to remember is timing, and that you will never be able to answer all the questions. And wallahi, that's the truth, so don't deny. I put a little bit of a wallahi in there. The reason why I'm saying that is, apart from quantitative reasoning and apart from abstract reasoning, now unless you're an absolute beast, you will never finish DM or verbal reasoning to the degree that you wanted to. And yes, I'm telling you to guess those that you are unable to do so in the last 15 seconds, but spend your time wisely. Like I mentioned in the QR section, that you answer the questions that are the easiest first by looking for those with the least amount of text. And I put a spicy wallahi there just so you guys realise that I have a little bit of Somali in me. But honestly, it's really important that you realise that you won't be able to answer all the questions, and that you do not stress over that, because it's natural, and you can score a score in the 700s and even the 800s, even if you leave off 5 to 6 questions but you score the rest completely correctly. And even if you score the rest of the questions incorrectly, if you get roughly 28 in a section of like 32, you should be fine. Now, the second tip, all mocks that are done is a must, and you have to affirm to be scoring an average of 700 plus in the last 3 days. It seems a little bit of waffle, but what I'm trying to say is that by doing all the mocks, by doing all the practice, all the tips that I've recommended, you should be scoring in the last 3 days an average score of 700 or close to 700. I am saying that you should be aiming for, I've already mentioned what we'd be aiming for, but you should be getting now in the last 3 days a score from 690 to 730, if not higher, if you really mastered the tips that I've given you and you have your own style, your own twist to it. But that's not too hard. If you've learned from your mistakes and you've noted your mistakes and revised it, done everything, I don't know, put flashcards, if that really helps you, you should be scoring in that range, to expect to score in that range on the actual day. Do remember that on the actual day, the questions will probably be easier in certain sections. Like QR in Medify is probably a little bit harder than it was in the real exam. The abstract reasoning section, I'd say, is roughly the same, so that was good. The verbal reasoning section is probably easier in Medify than it is in the real exam, so bear that in mind. And the DM section, I would say roughly the same. Don't quote me verbatim and say that I got a score of 700 in Medify and when I went in I came out with 500. Then I don't know if you read 5 for 7, but you get what I'm trying to say. Now, the third tip, note your mistakes and memorize the acronym as mentioned beforehand. Now, the acronym is one that will save you in the abstract reasoning section, so bear that in mind. If there's anything you remember, the abstract reasoning section, acronym, acronym essentially, abstract reasoning, acronym AA. Just remember it as like that yellow car thingy-majid, you know, the one that helps cars that break down. But essentially remember that, because you will be stressed in the exam. You will definitely be stressed, and that stress will make you forget obvious patterns, and only once you leave the room will you say, that's what it was. So take my advice, write down the pattern, the acronym on the whiteboard and have it present with you, so you're able to look at the list and look at the screen, look at the list, look at the screen, and you're able to quickly go through this section. Now, the fourth tip, sleep properly. No 2 hour sleep. Remember that. Leave to the gentle flicking through the notes if you've been working on the last couple of weeks. So do not jeopardize your sleep. Sleep is so important, especially on the last day. You need to make sure that you walk in with a fresh mind and you're not, you know, half sleeping, because the stress on that day, or the stress on the AR section, if you are stressed, it will play a massive role. Like maybe you're scoring 800s, but because of that stress, you're going to be scoring 600. So do remember to just relax, take a deep breath. Honestly, just take a deep breath, relax, and get used to the room before you take the exam. I think there's a point coming up that will really explain it. Now, one of the last tips is to breathe and relax inside the exam room. Now, for as long as you turn up to your exam early, the examination officer or the donut eater, I actually shouldn't be saying that sort of stuff, but examination officer cannot force you to take your exam. Like, you have to click start exam, and then it will bring you through that 1 minute screen for you reading the screen, and then it will bring you onto the VR section. So they cannot force you to take the exam. You can be sitting there until the center closes down, or a timing before the 2 hours will mean that the center's closing down. So just chill, relax, adjust the brightness. That's what I'm saying. Adjust the chair, adjust the brightness. Make sure it's optimal conditions. One guy told me that he was taking the exam and the brightness was too much, it was hurting his eyes. It sounds like a really good excuse, but I believe him because he's practicing on a certain computer, and once you change to a massive screen computer, I remember it was like this big. I was like, do you understand? So it was very, very awkward to use that computer, but that's what I'm saying. You need to adjust yourself to that computer. And that's why I'm saying you really need to adjust your chair and the brightness, and essentially just relax and have confidence in what you've done. This is vital. This is absolutely vital, and we'll go on to the mindset tips in a bit, but have confidence. You've spent the last 6 weeks banging out for this Ucat exam. The last thing you want is to doubt yourself in any capacity. You've put in that work, you've put in that dedication, that friend time that you could have spent with your friends, unless your friend is your computer, and essentially you've done all the mini mocks, you've done all the Medify, the full UKCAT mocks, the official UKCAT papers. Now you're the real champion. Basically, you are the real champion. There's no two ways about it. You're gonna bang this exam, and I'll mention a few other tips on the real mindset tips. If you have very minimal time, I have an ebook that is present in the link description, and that's my killer tips. Essentially, I explained them in the video, but there are some tips in there that I haven't really explained. Basically, catch you guys on the other side.
Why is it hard for me? Why is it hard?